let's talk about Live Aid, which this year, 2025, is 40 years since the event took place on the 13th of July, 1985. A certain British rock band opened proceedings that day, which we shall get to, but first, a little bit of history. So in 1984, Boomtown Rats singer Bob Geldof is watching a news report on BBC television fronted by Michael Burke about the famine in Ethiopia that was happening at that time. And he is shocked by what he sees and decides to try and raise funds to help. So he enlists the help of Ultravox singer Midge Ure, and they come up with the idea of a charity single, and thus Do They Know It's Christmas is born. They enlist the help of pretty much every major pop star working at that time, from Boy George, George Michael, Duran Duran, Spandau Ballet, Phil Collins, like the list is endless. And Francis Rossi and Rick Parfitt of Status Quo were invited along, I believe, to kind of widen out the potential buying base of this record. And so Do They Know It's Christmas, fronted with artwork by artist Peter Blake, is released in December of 1984. This was a huge undertaking for them. There is a great documentary was on BBC iPlayer. I think it's still there. It's certainly on YouTube, about the making of this record, the stuff they managed to achieve in 24 hours, recording all of those different artists, was nothing short of astonishing. And so, yeah, this comes out. It's a huge hit. And Bob Geldof decides to try and raise even more money. And so the concerts that happen in July 1985 become kind of the next project. And this project was a huge undertaking in 1985, because what was proposed was essentially two concerts taking place simultaneously and then being broadcast all around the world via satellite, which for that time was a massive thing. And I know that the EBU were involved via the BBC. You know, they were involved with the broadcast of this thing, but it hadn't really been done to that scale before. And so in the UK, the Live Aid event was broadcast from 12 noon, introduced by Richard Skinner of Radio 1, broadcast first on BBC 2 and then later on BBC 1. But in those days, the TV was only in mono. You could tune in to Radio 1 FM all day and hear a stereo broadcast of the same event, and they tried to sync up the pictures for that. Now, Prince Charles and Princess Diana come on, Coldstream Guards, and all of that stuff. And then the first band come to the stage, introduced in voice, something about the next 16 hours of music. Firstly, Status Quo. And now, Status Quo at this point, I don't think had performed a live gig since the end of the Road tour around a year previously. They'd had some rehearsal, and the lineup at this point, you know, was Francis Rossi, Rick Parfitt, Alan Lancaster, Andy Bown, and Pete Kircher. They performed 3 numbers, starting with Rockin' All Over the World, which was the perfect number to start with, because it just kind of epitomized what they were going for. The event was kind of advertised as the global jukebox. And so to start it with Rockin' All Over the World was just brilliant. And so they start it off. And then they go into Caroline, which they think, you know, this is a favourite, we hope. And they finish off with Don't Waste My Time, which is an unusual inclusion into that because it wasn't a single. It wasn't the most well-known song in their catalogue, and they had actually rehearsed Whatever You Want a day or so before. There is video footage to support this, but for whatever reason, they chose Don't Waste My Time. I would imagine it's because it was the one that was maybe the shortest, it's kind of less stuff, and it just fit the mood perfectly. And before Francis Rossi introduces the song, he looks over to the side of the stage and he says, "We've got time for one more." And he's a little bit confused as to whether that's possible. And so I do wonder whether that was the moment that they chose to go with essentially what is a quickie. But what a quickie to go with, something of a deep cut. But this third song is one that kind of got lost in the shuffle over the years, because after the event, the two songs that were remembered were the first two songs they performed. And then when the DVD came out about 20 years ago, Don't Waste My Time was omitted. And until very recently, I didn't even realize they performed a third song. I think there was a copy on YouTube or something. It was like, well, why isn't this here? And the end of Caroline on the DVD was edited to make it look like they'd only performed two songs. I can understand why, space saving or licensing or whatever, but Don't Waste My Time was pretty much forgotten, it seemed, until very recently on the YouTube channel, when they decided to remaster, remix, do all that stuff, and it's finally out there. And to me, this is my personal opinion, it is the strongest of the three performances that you have, because rocking all over the world, you've got the nerves of everything going on. Andy Bound starting off that piano intro, and they're just kind of settling in front of, hundreds of thousands of people at Wembley Stadium. You then have, Caroline, where at the beginning, Rick's hand is caught in a cameraman who tries to get too close, in the cameraman's lead there. So then by the third one, the pressure is off, and the band are solid as a rock at this point, and Rossi looks like he's having the time of his life. He is owning that stage, and during Rick's kind of solo part towards the end, Rossi gets everybody clapping. And the thing about this concert is Queen are often talked about how they got everybody involved. Rossi is doing that as the first act in this concert. And so the clip is out there. Go and look at it. I've watched it a few times. The way that the cameras are like freely roaming around and Rossi catches one of them and is performing to it perfectly rhythmically without missing a note of that iconic solo of Don't Waste My Time. And so they go off and the rest of the day happens. I mean, there are, a bit like Band-Aid, loads of like really big acts from that period. I've got a list here. I mean, the Style Council, the Boomtown Rats, obviously, Adamant, Ultravox, Spandau Ballet, Elvis Costello, Nick Kershaw, Sting, Phil Collins, Howard Jones, Brian Ferry, Paul Young, U2, Dire Straits, Queen, David Bowie, The Who, and then finished by Paul McCartney. I have spoken to people who were there and people who saw it on that day, and they have really fond memories of seeing each act. In Philadelphia, a concert was taking place around the same time at John F. Kennedy Stadium. And this, as I say, was a huge deal at that time to be able to link up these two things and have them running at the same time and broadcast. I mean, we were seeing, I wasn't born, but people were seeing at the time broadcasts from Philadelphia with acts including Joan Baez, the Hooters, Four Tops, Billy Ocean, Black Sabbath, Run DMC, Rick Springfield, REO Speedwagon, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, Neil Young, Judas Priest, George Thorogood and the Destroyers, Simple Minds, Pretenders, Santana. The list goes on. Duran Duran played there too. Madonna. I mean, it was a huge, thing at that time. All these artists on one bill. What are your memories of Live Aid? How much of it did you catch? It went on for, I think, about 16 hours plus in the end, because the UK concert ended around 10 p.m. With a performance of Do They Know It's Christmas. Rick can be seen quite clearly in that performance. And then until about 4 or 5 a.m. our time, the concert in Philadelphia went on. And at the same time as all of this, there were other events down around the world, such as Oz for Africa, and B.B. King was broadcast as well, performing songs in the Netherlands at a festival over there. Do you have a particular favourite act aside from Quo that you saw that day or you've seen since? I think aside from Quo, my favourite performances, looking down this very long list, I mean, Queen has to be up there. That's sort of passed into legend. I think the story goes, that they were raising money and it started to dip off a little bit, and then Queen came on and it just boosted it quite dramatically. Whether this is true or not, different people will have different opinions on these things. But David Bowie that day was, an enjoyable performance. In Philadelphia, I keep going on YouTube to the Beach Boys, who performed with Brian Wilson in the band, and they performed a set of numbers. I mean, how they managed to do some of the sort of latter material in a live setting was astonishing. George Thorogood as well, who brought on Bo Diddley and Albert Collins for numbers, the master of the Telecaster. In the years since, Band Aid and Live Aid, there are sort of political angles and opinions to come from. And to be honest, I am not the right person to pass comment or judgment or offer any angles on these things. There are people much more versed in this stuff than I. For this episode, I kind of just wanted to focus primarily on the event itself and the music. I would love to speak to people about all different angles of this event. It would be great to hear from you, so please do get in touch. So tell me, did you attend Live Aid in 1985? Were Queen as mesmerizing as they appeared on film? Do you have a favourite act that you saw in person that maybe surprised you? This also runs to people who attended in Philadelphia as well. Did you watch it on TV? How long did you watch it for? Did you listen to it on Radio 1, either solo or simulcast with the TV footage? Did you see it from the beginning? Did you only catch bits throughout the day? All of these questions and more. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you again for another episode of the Quo-Cast.